Episode 84 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, everybody, to an episode for the Italian-speaking viewers of the Interpretation Station. This is an episode for you. It's a very special episode that we have today. As usual, I am joined by my partner in crime when we do the Italian episodes, Miss Sara Molinari. Hello, Sara.
Hello, Roland. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well, thanks. I'm just counting. Well, I've got about a week, 10 days to go of my holidays. Then I'll be back to work. I know you're going on holiday, aren't you?
Yes, right. Going to Sicily this year.
Ooh, yeah. Lucky you, lucky you.
Yeah, I'll be boiling, I think.
What's the temperature down? What's the temperature there at the moment?
It's really high. Syracuse, I think it was around 40 degrees.
I mean, here in Serbia, it's been like 37, 38.
Okay.
That's why I've had to do all my episodes half naked, you see. But I thought for this one, all right, I'll try and show a bit of decorum. So it's okay. This one will be all right. Now, this is a very special episode. We're doing something unusual today. So Sara is obviously, as you probably know, she's like a translator. She's more her work is more focused on translation. But we thought today we would experiment a bit, and we're actually going to do some interpretation. Sara has actually interpreted a text for me from English into Italian. It's a text by the European Union. So we're actually, Sara is going to go under the surgeon's knife, as it were. I am going to be picking apart her work today, so this should be interesting. Hopefully we won't fall out over it. Hopefully she won't get too angry with me. But before we get to Sara's text, I actually think I want Sara just to tell the Interpretation Station viewers, just a few words about herself. She's a bit of a woman of mystery. You know, she just comes on, appears with me doing the Italian episodes, and everyone wonders, who is this person? Who is Sara? Well, Sara, tell us, who are you?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I started to work as a freelance translator and interpreter in 2006, approximately. And I mean, in the early years, I worked mainly as interpreter for exhibitions, international exhibitions, and translator too. But with passing of time, there were more requests of translations than interpretation. So that's why I also started to do more translations instead of interpreting, etc. So I focused on translation and for example, attended courses to get qualified in several fields. And so, yeah, mainly this is the reason why I focused on translation mainly, because it happens to do so. I mean, the requests were mostly on translation. So
that's where the demand is, right? Yeah, that's where the work is, okay.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying it's like medical translation is your sort of specialist field?
Yeah, medical translation and also legal and I mean business, corporate documents, for example, negotiations or quality reports. For example, for certifying the quality of a certain industrial process. So, yeah.
Very technical vocabulary. That must be very technical. All right.
Yeah,
okay, well, so if anyone's watching, there you go. If anyone's watching and they've got work in those fields, medical fields, quality control, etc., Go to Sara. Go to Sara. I can vouch for her quality. She's really meticulous in her preparation, and we make really good episodes together. So give Sara a call. quick job advert for you there, Sara. Okay, so and you do it also from Spanish. So Sara goes from English and Spanish into Italian, right?
Yes, right.
Now, Sara, just tell us a bit about the text that we're going to be doing today, then.
Okay, it was really okay. It's a text on trade and development.
Is it a field that you're very familiar with?
I mean, yes, trade and development, but on the behalf of industrial, corporate documents, probably not in the general meaning. So not generally speaking about environment, not generally speaking about trade. Okay, yep. So yeah, not specifically on this side, but yeah, it was difficult to interpret the audio we will see, because it was really fast. The
yep.
speed was the thing that was most challenging for me to handle, because I'm not used to that speed, honestly. Yep. So that was a challenge, a problem.
This was a meeting I actually worked. I was in that meeting. Yeah. You'd like to, it was a couple of months ago, I think, and the name of the committee, that's right, it was in well, we call it UNCTAD at the UN, so it's called the UN Commission on Trade and Development.
Yeah.
It is commission, it's not the committee, right? It's the commission.
Commission.
Commission. And I'll give you, and here's a funny little thing.
Really?
Under no circumstances take a decision. UNCTAD.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know. So I don't know. So in Italian, you probably call it just UNCTAD, yeah?
UNCTAD. No Italian translation for this. We keep the English.
You keep the English, okay. Yes. Some in French and Spanish, they have their own version. Like in French, for example, it's le CNUSED. And I think it might be the same in Spanish, actually. But anyway, Italian, they would keep it the same. So yeah, I mean, that committee, it does pretty much what it says it does. There's lots of vocabulary then to do with trade and development. And so we decided to do the European Union statement. The European Union statements, they're very good ones to do from English, because the vocabulary they use, it's usually taken, from all the sort of the main treaties, the main resolutions. It's very issue specific. They don't sort of wander off too much. They're very, I guess, because they have to speak on behalf of whatever 26, 27 member states, it has to all be sort of agreed language. So when individual nations speak, sometimes they go off on their own little things, but when it's the EU speaking, it's on the behalf of a bigger group, so they keep it very sort of focused, and that's why it's good for learning vocabulary like this. Now, as I say, it is a tough text. I've listened to it as well, because it was delivered, I believe, by VTC. Before we start, what I advise you guys to do is, I'm going to leave in the description box a link to the text. I'm also going to, I'm going to leave a link to the hard copy, the transcript. I'm going to leave a link to the audio so that you can go and listen to the audio. And I would advise you to actually, first of all, go and listen to the audio, interpret yourself, record yourself interpreting it, see how you find it, and then come back and watch this episode with me and Sara, see if there's any new stuff that you can learn from us. I think that's why in my tutorials, that's what I tell people to do. And I think that's the best way to do it, is to have a recording of yourself, and then you can sort of match what you've said to what you hear on the show. Okay, so with that little introduction then, I think we're going to start listening to Sara's performance. Are you ready, Sara?
No, I'm not ready.
You're
But
not ready for
okay.
this.
That's okay anyway.
So we're going to bring up the the text on the screen for you.
Yeah.
And let's get going. Okay. So Sara is about to start. So the first you'll hear the delegate's voice in the background, Sara's, and you will hear Sara's words coming over from the audio. Okay, so let's get started then. Here we go.
Presidente, ho l'onore di parlare per conto dell'Unione Europea e i suoi Stati membri. L'Unione Europea e i suoi Stati membri si congratulano con l'UNCTAD per il suo valido contributo relativo al nesso tra commercio e sviluppo, supportando i paesi in via di sviluppo affinché si beneficino dalla migrazione economica
Okay,
globale.
so how was that opening for you, Sara?
It was difficult, but no, I mean, it was just an introduction. So yeah, the speed was already quite.
You can already tell it's going quite fast. Yep.
Yeah,
so when you hear that speed, when you hear that quality of sound, you got to be saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to have to start. I'm going to have to take shortcuts. I'm going to have to drop words that I don't need.
Exactly.
I'm going to have to use acronyms. You're going to have to use all the tricks, to get through a statement like this. Now, a word like, how did you say before I say my thing, I'd like to commend UNCTAD. What was the wording you used there?
I used si congratulano con l'UNCTAD in inglese.
Okay. Do you have a synonym or two? What's another word that what are other words that you could use?
Allora, si congratulano può essere, can be also interpret as, for example, si complimentano.
Okay, so you got a couple of things to.
Si congratulano, si complimentano. The two words that come to my mind at first, at the very first, are these. I mean,
okay, so that's good. That's a sort of like word that you want to have two or three alternatives for. I mean, because coming from English, you're going to hear things like commending UNCTAD, applauding UNCTAD, hailing UNCTAD. Sometimes we hail, yeah. Now, what I was going to say here is that there's a classic example here of a shortcut that Sara could have taken. Okay. So he says in the beginning, the European Union and its member states. Tell me, first of all, Sara, in Italian, for the European Union, do you ever use an acronym for the European Union? Do you ever call it LUE?
No, European Union, it is EU, yes. Sorry,
okay.
UE, sorry, UE. That's right.
So you can say that in Italian. Okay.
Yeah, because it's Unione Europea in Italian. So UE, it's fine. I mean,
okay, because you know what? Yeah. So in French, for example, okay, so they like to say l'Union Européenne, but you don't often really hear them saying l'UE. Very rare. It sounds almost strange when they say it in French. But one thing you can do to shorten it, instead of having to say the European Union again, is you just say in French, l'Union, okay? And that's it. So in Italian, you could just say, what is it, la Unione?
I've never heard just Unione, la Unione, but probably that's just me, I don't know. But
I think in the context, because you're hearing the European Union in the first sentence.
Really, yeah, in this context, and if you want to cut because of the speed, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can. It can be a solution. L'Unione, it's implicit that
it refers to the first sentence. Yeah, you could say. Yeah, exactly. So you give it the full name. The idea is you give it the full name in the first sentence.
Yeah.
But the second time you just say l'Union or l'Unione, exactly. Yeah. Or you could just say we. Really, you could just say we. He's repeating it, the EU and its member states. you can just say we. With things like this is a tip, by the way, I'm going to give you. If you're in a big meeting, a big multilateral meeting, okay, and you've got whoever it is, the EU speaking, let's say it's, and if they're going to be listening to any one of the other booths, it's most likely to be the English booth they're going to listen to, okay, to make sure that what's coming out of the English booth is correct. It's very unlikely that any of the sort of delegates from the delegation that are giving the actual statement are going to listen into any of the other booths, the Chinese booth, the Arabic booth. Okay, this is from the UN, and but the same would apply to in the European Union or the European Parliament. The only foreign one they might listen into is the English one, really. Yeah. So that gives you a lot more freedom to make these shortcuts. No one's going to know if you just say, we. That's a thing that the non-English booths can really take advantage of. That's the thing. See, the English booth, right? We're the luckiest because we actually have sort of the least to do a lot of the time, because lots of meetings are in English, or 50% of meetings are in English. So we have the most time to sort of sit down and catch up on Facebook or whatever it may be, surf the internet. But when we do work, then there's a chance that everyone listens to us. But with the other booths, you're working all the time. There's not so many people listening to you. The other booths have got a bit more margin for taking shortcuts. So, you could say the equivalent of, have the honor of speaking on behalf of the European Union and its member states. We would like to commend, in Italian, obviously. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there'll be other examples of that later. So yes, that was all I was going to say. The rest was good. Okay, let's play on.
Okay.
Attraverso un approccio basato su 3 pilastri, l'UNCTAD svolge molte attività che sono riconosciute per il loro valore sia dai beneficiari che dai donatori. L'importanza delle azioni dell'UNCTAD, ben ponderate e orientate ai risultati, sono diventate sempre più evidenti durante gli sforzi globali per affrontare e uscire dalla pandemia di Covid-19.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. For example, loro hanno parlato di, per esempio, 3 pilastri, un approccio basato su 3 pilastri, ok? E poi hanno detto che appunto attraverso questo approccio l'UNCTAD svolge tante attività che sono riconosciute per il loro valore, ok?
How do you say beneficiaries? How do you say beneficiaries in Italian?
Beneficiari, donors sono i donatori. Ecco, l'unica cosa, the only thing here is that I had to wait before translating the last part, because beneficiary and donors alike, to interpret this alike, you have to wait for the end of the sentence, otherwise you won't get this part.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is the alike. This is one of those, you don't really need it, to be honest. If people are listening to you, that alike, it's like redundant. It doesn't really add anything.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You can basically just stop as soon as you say donatori, end of
donatori, and that's it.
Full stop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. One of those.
Eventually, you might say beneficiari donatori allo stesso modo. Punto. Full stop.
Okay, if you wanted to reflect that alike, exactly.
Want to reflect, and if you have time enough.
If you have to, which in this case you don't. So you really just strip it down, as I always say, strip it down to the bare bones.
Exactly.
With statements like this.
Just leave it out.
Now, one thing I wanted to just highlight here was this sentence: global efforts. No, I beg your pardon. Well thought and. This is in the next sentence. Okay, well thought and result oriented. Now, again, under these circumstances, you could be forgiven for dropping one of those. You could just, maybe the more important of the two is results oriented, so as you know, when you have these sort of adjectives, when you're under pressure, sort of adjectives are often the first things to go, to be dropped. So with two adjectives like this, well thought and results oriented, you could be forgiven for certainly dropping one of those.
Yeah.
And the same goes, and then in the next, and that same sentence, okay, global efforts to face and recover. Again, do you have a word perhaps that sums up both those two ideas in Italian? What did you say in the Italian?
I said per affrontare e uscire dalla pandemia.
Okay.
But I also thought of another solution. For example, sforzi globali relativi, legati, related to the COVID pandemic, and that's it. I mean, related to probably that might be originated from maybe a solution to cut this this part would be just to put related to, probably.
I think you need a verb. I think you do need a verb. You need a verb, really.
So
you know, to deal with, to address, you know, in English are other options. I mean, what you said, I quite like affrontare. Okay, that you could probably just do with that, and then do away with uscire.
Without saying uscire, probably it's
exactly
more than enough. Affrontare.
Affrontare is a very general. Everyone
yeah.
knows what you mean. So again, if you're in a hurry, if you're under pressure, you don't need the uscire as well. Affrontare, I think, speaks for itself.
Exactly.
Okay, let me play on there.
In tal senso vorremmo in particolare elogiare il lavoro svolto nei settori economia digitale, e-commerce, microimprese e PMI, agevolazione del commercio, investimenti, protezione della concorrenza e dei consumatori di genere, così come il lavoro statistico dietro le quinte.
Okay. Anything there, Sara? You'd like to highlight?
For example, okay, I said vorremmo in particolare, you can leave out, I think, in particular, if you don't have time to, I mean, it's a plus.
Yeah. And even you could leave out the vorrebbe, just say we commend.
Elogiamo.
You know?
Just simply elogiamo, it could be.
Exactly. You don't need the would like, especially. Exactly. There's that word again. So you elogiamo. See, that's another one. You see, I asked Sara before what the alternatives were for se congratulon. Now we've got another one. Complimentare.
Complimentarsi.
There you go. And how do you say it? Sorry.
Elogiare.
Elogiare. Okay, so we've got three now. Three synonyms for that idea.
I had also one other thing. Elogiare, I said il lavoro svolto. It's also enough. I mean, elogiare il lavoro dei settori. Of course.
Exactly. That verb can go.
Right.
You don't need to reflect that done. You don't need it. I mean,
il lavoro dei, etc. So
even in English, you could just as easily say commend the work in the areas of digital economy, and it wouldn't change the meaning in any way.
Enough. I mean, you understand the sentence even.
Exactly. Now, this word MSMEs. So, what did you say for that?
It's microimprese e PMI, piccole e medie imprese. I used an acronym here, PMI in Italian, PMI.
Okay.
But yeah, and I leave.
It's a good one to recognize. Okay. Sometimes you'll just hear SMEs in English, but when they add the MSMEs, it's, as you say, it's micro businesses.
Microimprese and PMI. We have PMI. So
PM. Okay. Another one. Then at the end of the sentence, that will remind you. What did you say for underlying statistical work? Yeah. Underlying. What did you say for underlying?
Dietro le quinte, behind the scenes.
Okay. Now, what I was going to say here, with a word like this, it's quite difficult to just off the top of your head find an exact match for that word. So with a word like that, you want to have basically a bailout word, like a really neutral word that still gets across that idea, like associated, I mean, related, you know, that's all. Okay, underlying means it's what comes under it and holds it from below. As I say, it's quite tricky to immediately come up with that. So at the very least, you just want to have something along to reflect the idea of as well as related statistical work. So what you said, you were actually very precise, right? You said what lies beneath. Okay, so that's a very high degree of precision. But if you can't find that high degree of precision in the moment, then you need to just have, like I say, a sort of bailout word, just a sort of neutral word that you can stick in there.
You can also say as well as, quindi così anche il lavoro statistico svolto.
Okay.
Done. I mean, finished.
Done, exact.
So, yeah.
Okay, let me play on. There we go.
Nel corso di circa 6 decenni di attività, l'UNCTAD ha fornito risultati significativi, sia riguardo la macroeconomia, sia a livello multilaterale, oppure sia sulla microeconomia a livello regionale, nazionale e
Now,
locale.
speaking of unnecessary words, this whole idea, okay, during almost 6 decades of its existence, this of its existence doesn't add anything, okay?
Yeah.
You could just basically say during for 60 years, whatever the equivalent is for 6 decades.
Yes.
The of its existence,
Yeah.
it doesn't, we know what they're getting at. So what did you say there?
I said 6 decenni di attività.
Okay, the attività, okay.
Attività, yeah. L'UNCTAD, ok, fornito risultati significativi, ok.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, for delivered considerable results.
Some cuts here. Yeah, because a livello macroeconomico e anche macroeconomico a livello regionale. Yeah, I made a list basically.
I think that's forgivable. Again, you've got this whole regional, national, local level. If you miss one out,
I think one out,
it's not a big deal.
Or I don't know, something.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole concept. I mean, I think I conveyed the whole concept. I think.
Yeah.
But
Oggi, con meno di un decennio a disposizione come indicato dagli SDG, l'importanza dell'UNCTAD potrebbe aumentare come non mai.
Okay, this is interesting. From my point of view, this is an interesting expression in English. Less than a decade left on the SDG clock. I might actually start using that in English. For example, when I hear it in French, they often talk about the échéance. They also talk about échéance. Well, in Spanish, el plazo. And I always think with 6 decades, with a decade till the deadline, I'm always talking about deadlines, even though in English it doesn't sound quite right. This is like a nice way of putting this in English. It's a decade left on the SDG clock. What's the word that you use in Italian there?
Ok, I said oggi con meno di un decennio a disposizione come indicato, come indicato dagli SDG. I didn't know where to put the word clock.
Well, again, this is one of those cases where you have to sometimes step away from the original and see how you would say it in your own language. What is the word in Italian for a deadline?
Deadline is scadenza. Scadenza.
So would that work here?
Ok, con meno di un decennio dalla scadenza, probably, dalla scadenza indicata dagli SDG. Yeah. It could work.
Yeah, would that work in Italian?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I say, sometimes you have to step away from the original and just concentrate in your own language, concentrate on what sounds best in your own language.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go on.
Tuttavia, nonostante molti prodotti lodevoli e supportati consensualmente, il ruolo generale dell'UNCTAD all'interno del multilateralismo è in qualche modo
This is getting
rimasto
tricky
indietro
now. It's
negli
getting
ultimi anni.
fast,
Infatti,
eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what have anything here? So what did you say for lagging behind?
Rimanere indietro, è rimasto indietro. It's
Okay,
that's pretty much the same. I mean, that's the almost word-to-word translation in Italian.
okay,
So,
and
è in qualche modo rimasto indietro, sì, negli ultimi anni.
okay.
Mm.
And then he so in just before with the very commendable and consensually endorsed products. Again, here's somewhere where you might just have to drop something. What did you say for commendable products?
Ok, commendable products, prodotti lodevoli. Maybe
Okay, that's actually an important word. They often talk about things that are commendable, so it's good to have in Italian a good go-to word for that. Say it again in Italian.
lodevoli, lodevoli.
Lodevoli.
Sì.
Oh, laudable, like laudable. Yeah, okay,
Yes,
laudable.
exactly.
You can say that in English as well, actually.
Ah, you can say it, okay.
Laudable, yeah. Yeah. You might hear it coming into it. Yeah, laudable, definitely. Yeah. Commendable, laudable, admirable. You'll hear that. You hear all of those.
Mhm.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, and ok, all'interno
le Nazioni Unite hanno deciso di affrontare certe questioni in altri contesti, anche se alcuni li potrebbero ancora considerare l'importanza
Now,
centrale
in this
per
sentence,
l'UNCTAD.
I was interested to see what you said for fora in other fora, and you said contexti.
Contesti,
Okay.
yes, o circostanze.
Now, I'm just wondering about that. So in okay, I'm going from French. So in French, they talk about dans des autres enceintes. So it means in other settings, in other
in altri campi.
fora. No, you see, for example, UNCTAD is one fora, for example, or the General Assembly is another fora, or the WHO is another fora. I mean, contexto is not bad. I'm just wondering if there's a better.
Okay.
What are they saying? What do they? You can't say just fora. There's not a word like in Italian for fora.
In altre sedi.
Okay.
I think it could work.
Okay. I'm surprised there's not a word for. I mean, you Italians, the Romans, they were the ones that invented the forum, right?
Yeah, exactly. It comes from Latin.
Right. From Latin, exactly. But you don't, but you don't use it as much then.
No.
You see, in English, you talk about forum, fora. I use it all the time. You know.
No, here, for example, reverso translation, for example, gives me in altri ambiti istituzionali or in altri organismi internazionali.
Right. Well, you want to find something. I mean, I like what you said. Altri contesti sounded nice.
Yeah. Contesti. Yeah.
Find something something quick that you can say for that sort of thing. Yeah. You don't want to be going into the whole ambiti internazionali. Just
That's too long when interpreting. No, it's too much probably. So in altre sedi, probably it could be the best solution, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's carry on.
Alcuni prodotti dell'UNCTAD restano ai margini delle discussioni multilaterali a causa delle percezioni di un'analisi unilaterale
again here,
parziale.
one-sided or partial, pretty much repeating. I mean, this is again another case where what he says, those two words are virtually identical. So I would just drop one of those words, okay?
Yeah, okay.
You have to think on your feet sometimes, just realize, okay, that's just, it's what's called in English a tautology, when you say two words that mean exactly the same thing. So one of them can just be dropped. Okay, let's go on.
E a volte le procedure dell'UNCTAD alimentano ulteriori divisioni tra i membri, anziché costruire un consenso
Okay, I like what you
intragovernativo.
used here for feed into. What did you use there?
Alimentano.
Alimentano. Okay.
Same, pretty much the same. I mean, in Italian we use alimentare. That's the right
Okay.
word for feed. So,
Do you any synonyms?
ok, for example, le procedure alimentano, provocano.
Okay, so it's good. All right.
Oppure portano a, lead to.
All right. These are words that you want, as I say, to have alternatives for.
Yeah, or
I risultati osservati, da una parte, sono stati di parziale ritiro dell'adesione di alcune attività e dall'altra carenza di risorse per molte attività fondamentali. Con la...
The
Quindi c'è
observed results, again, that observed adds nothing to the text. So that's the sort of thing you should be looking to drop.
yeah,
Okay. You can just say the result, el risultato, whatever. And then anything else, any words you wanted to highlight there, Sara, in that sentence?
Let me check here. Okay, disengagement of membership. Disengagement. For example, I said ritiro parziale dell'adesione. So
I think that sounds good. That sounds very good.
yeah.
And then I liked what you said for undernourishment.
Okay, in undernourishment. Yeah, I thought about carenza di risorse.
Exactly. I thought that was a very good choice, carencia.
Because I couldn't think at the moment on the spot, let's say, anything better. But
No, I think that was excellent.
probably, yeah, it could work, probably.
This picks up a bit on what I was saying before about words like underlying, okay? These words like disengagement, undernourishment. Again, they're quite hard in that moment just to get the exact like for like word.
Exactly.
And so what you said, like, so disengagement is basically, even in English, it's like disengagement is like that sort of level of complexity. And then you've got like withdrawal, which is sort of that level, which is much a simpler word to go to. As I say, it's a sort of, retiro is a sort of, again, a sort of bailout word, you know.
Yeah.
It's a new, sort of more neutral word, but with basically the same meaning. And again, with undernourishment, it just means a lack. It's just a fancy, it's a really fancy way of saying a lack of, which, as you say in the Italian, una carencia, right?
Sì, o mancanza. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, exactly. Give them those synonyms. That's it. We want these synonyms.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on.
La conferenza dell'UNCTAD in ottobre e l'appuntamento con Rebecca Greenspan in veste di nuovo segretario generale e i successivi 2 decenni e più di solleciti affinché fosse rivitalizzata l'organizzazione, l'UNCTAD si trova ad un bivio. Crediamo che...
Okay.
Okay.
Anything there?
Okay, in veste di... could also be come, for example, I said l'appuntamento con Rebecca Greenspan, ok?
Okay.
In veste di or come, oppure or simply leave it out. Nuovo segretario generale. I had three options. Leaving it out, in veste di or come. So.
Investidi is a... What's investidi?
It means in person of, in the person of, in quality of.
Okay.
Yeah.
You probably want to just keep it simple again with that sort of thing. And also with a word like the Secretary General, if you're in real trouble, you could always just say jefe. Is that how you say? Yeah, is that a word in Italian? Jefe.
Sì, jefe è il capo in realtà, però...
il capo, ok.
Sì, però qui forse era giusto, maybe here it was right to keep the segretario generale, probably, I think.
If you can, I mean, it's best to get that, but again, it takes a bit of a saying, Secretary General. It's a bit of a mouthful. So if you're in a hurry, you could always be forgiven for just saying el capo. Okay.
Oppure... Sì, il capo in questo caso, I think about the word capo in this context, probably segretario,
Okay.
and that's it probably, yeah.
So you'll hear that. I mean, also the SG. You'll hear that acronym used. Okay, you need to. So that is exactly the Secretary General. I mean, the UN Secretary General is often referred to as the SG. So you need to recognize what that means. The SG.
Exactly.
Secretary General. Okay, not to be confused with the Soviet Communist Party. They had a general secretary.
Okay.
Yeah. The UN has a Secretary General, but the head of the Soviet Union was always the General Secretary.
Okay.
I don't know if you didn't have that distinction in Italian for those two, no?
I don't think so, but it's better if I check about this.
No, it's okay. This is just a bit of general knowledge. That's all.
Yeah, I don't really know about this.
Just a bit of general knowledge. Okay, let's go on.
Il successo della conferenza e le azioni dei mesi seguenti determineranno se l'UNCTAD possa reclamare il suo ruolo nel sistema delle Nazioni Unite o se eventualmente si chiuderà in uno stato di inerzia.
This is tricky. Some of this stuff's tricky, right? Anything you want to highlight there? Any vocab that you use there, Sara?
Yeah, probably here. Okay, lock itself in further inertia.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It was really difficult. I mean, I just said si chiuderà in uno stato di inerzia.
Okay, I find that's a word that you want a few synonyms for. So in English, all these words like deadlock, stalemate, paralysis, they are what my colleague at work, my friend Dan Harrison, he calls them semantic fields. So it's all these words that come up in the same context.
I haven't thought about paralysis, but you're right. That's another solution.
Find some synonyms for inert. I mean, find for that sort of concept. As I say, you want 3 or 4: stalemate, deadlock, limbo.
O se cadrà in paralisi, o se.
Okay, so exactly.
O se starà in paralisi, sì, avrà una paralisi.
Now, one thing I did want to point out, the conference outcome. Now, you said successo. Am I right in saying successo?
Yes, I said il successo della conferenza.
Okay. Now, an outcome, it's a very common word to hear at the UN and probably in other international organizations. And it's more, in the other languages at any rate, it tends to get translated as resultado or les résultats. Is successo, it's positive sounding, right?
Yes, I thought it.
Yeah, that's taking it too far. If you hear about a conference outcome, you want something pretty neutral, like risultato. How do you say it in Italian? Risultato. Something like that. Okay.
Okay.
Outcomes. What were it's a very bureaucratic sort of word. I mean, you wouldn't sort of use it in ordinary conversation, but at international organizations, you often hear about the outcomes. And it's basically a risultato. Okay.
I would say probably risultato instead of success.
Okay. Exactly. Okay, let's go on.
Considerando l'impegno dimostrato nelle nostre negoziazioni per l'esito della conferenza, crediamo nella prima opzione.
That sounds good. The commitment is always a word you want a good solution for. Impegno, okay.
Yeah, usually for commitment, I use the word impegno.
Okay, that's a good one to have.
Sforzo.
Okay.
Effort, for example. Yeah. Yeah, basically these two solutions probably.
Okay, let's go on to the next page. Okay, so here we go.
L'Unione Europea e i suoi Stati membri, come maggiori contribuenti del sistema delle Nazioni Unite alle istituzioni di Bretton Woods e molti altri contesti internazionali, così come maggiori donatori di aiuti allo sviluppo e partner commerciali chiave e investitori per i paesi maggiormente in via di sviluppo, restano fortemente impegnati nella modernizzazione del sistema multilaterale.
Okay, so here we go again, impegnata, committed to. Okay.
Exactly.
Now there's a few interesting things to highlight here. Okay.
Oh,
Do you have the UN system? So I asked you earlier if there was something shorter for
yeah.
European Union. Do you ever short a thing for the UN, or do you always just call it Le Nazioni Unite? Do you ever use the acronym?
We usually call them Nazioni Unite. But in case we use the acronym, we use the English one.
Okay.
So we don't say NU, like Nazioni Unite, NU, no. We usually keep the English option, the English
Okay.
acronym. Yeah. It's
you don't have, so in French, obviously in French they've actually got a word, onusien, onusienne. The French have actually made up their own word, adjective, but you don't have that in Italian, eh?
No, never heard.
Okay.
At least as far as I know, I've never heard of it. So
okay. Now the Bretton Woods Institute. Well, with the Bretton Woods institutions, the two most important things you have to remember is they are basically the World Bank and the IMF. That's all that you really need to know. When the people refer to the Bretton Woods institutions, it's the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And you will hear, coming from English, you'll sometimes hear the BWIs mentioned, or BWI. That's an acronym that we will use in English, and it's sort of pretty important to be able to recognize.
Okay, so you say BWI.
BWI, that's right. Another interesting thing here. Okay, development aid. Do you know what? If I say to you, Sara, ODA, is that an acronym that you're familiar with?
ODA.
ODA.
I've heard of it.
Okay, so if any of you Italian guys watching, if you hear ODA in English, that means official development assistance.
Yes.
All right.
Looked up for this term, for this word in the dictionary online.
Right. That's a very important concept. I mean, that gets talked about all the time. If you're really unlucky with the British delegate, you'll occasionally even hear the acronym ODA.
Oh, okay.
ODA. Sometimes, not very often, but I have heard it.
Yeah, I think
it's an ugly sounding one.
I think there was probably 1 or 2 episodes we did where they use ODA as acronym.
ODA, right.
I'm not mistaken, because I remember that acronym.
You're more likely to hear ODA. That's more common. Occasionally you'll hear ODA.
Yeah.
The person who says ODA will probably also be the kind of person that will call the UN General Assembly UNGA.
Okay, I see.
That's another one just to watch out for. Okay, let's go on.
Mm-hmm.
Vediamo che l'UNCTAD dovrebbe fare parte di questo far parte di questo sistema multilaterale moderno, inclusivo e trasparente di domani.
I'm just interested in the word you've gone for accountable. I think you said trasparente.
Trasparente di domani, ok? Inclusivo e trasparente. Inclusivo e trasparente. Yeah, because accountable, I thought it meant like reliable, but then I looked up and it turned out that I could also interpret as trasparente. So,
okay, now the only thing is that often you'll hear these terms that are used in English, at least sort of separate. You've got accountability on the one hand, but also transparency on the other, with transparency being, being able to see what's going on. So so it's the opposite of like being in darkness. There should be light, you should be able to see what's happening. Whereas accountability being, if you do something wrong, that you should, pay for it in one way or another. And I think we've discussed this perhaps in a previous episode. And I think responsable, is that not the word that you?
Yes, inclusive, responsabile, probably.
Okay. So I think because they're not mentioned here together, it's fine. But when they are mentioned together, you probably want to have two different concepts.
Okay.
They're not exactly the same thing,
Okay.
And also, again, they talk a lot about accountability for crimes committed, for example.
Okay.
It's used. I use this expression a lot. I say how important it is to have in your language a good solution for something like ensuring accountability for crimes committed. It's something that gets talked about a lot in human rights situations. So it's the idea of accountability. It's an important one to have a good solution for.
Okay, so probably it would be better to use responsabile in this interpretation. I mean.
Okay. Okay, let's go on.
I nostri inviti al rilancio dell'UNCTAD, pertanto, non sono rivolti a cambiare il mandato e le risorse dell'UNCTAD, piuttosto un invito a ripristinare il valore dell'UNCTAD, a focalizzarsi sulle aree con un chiaro valore aggiunto e i risultati da paesi beneficiari.
Revitalization, I was interested you'd go on rilancia. Was that did I hear the right word?
Yes, rilancio.
Okay. I mean, at the UN, they talk about revitalization of various fora all the time. They constantly talk about revitalization of the UN Security Council, basically changing it, updating it. You don't have, is there a word in Italian?
Rivitalizzare, la rivitalizzazione.
Okay.
I don't know if it is a good idea to use it while interpreting.
That's a very good point, actually. That's what Sara says. If it's a hard word to actually say, then that's a good thing to go. Then go for rilancia. Rilancia is easy to say. And in circumstances like this, that can make all the difference to you.
Exactly. So
getting or not getting the next important point. So it's good to have a simple word. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Now there's a bit coming up I want to really highlight. So hang on.
Gentili eccellenze, illustri delegati, colleghi, attraverso la definizione dei punti cardine principali, l'Unione Europea e i Stati membri stanno costituendo l'avanguardia di un recupero
Sara,
globale.
you will notice the next part goes really, really, really fast, right?
Okay, yes, it will.
And you can actually hear her. Okay, so the delegate is saying, through its thematic priority setting, the EU, and you can hear it's good. That's why it's good. You can actually hear the original in the background. And as he's saying that, Sara is giving the full list. Eccellenci, delegati, colleghi. Right now, this is something I always say. This kind of thing, excellencies under these circumstances, utterly redundant. No need for it whatsoever. Get rid of it. Don't just forget it. Just get on to the actual meat of the sentence, okay? Because he's getting away, he's running away. So Sara's addressing each and every one of the king and the queen and the sheikh and the sultan.
Exactly.
And he's just talking. So that's a very important point, all you guys out there. So if you're under pressure, just get rid of that. And it goes back to what I'm saying before. The chances that the EU delegate is going to be listening into the Italian version, looking out for you to say all those, addressing all those delegates, it's zero virtually. And even the only time when it might be a fact is if it's a bilateral meeting. Let's say, I don't know, Italy and Russia. Yeah. And the Italian guy and the Italian, maybe someone they want to make sure that it's coming through in the Russian, for example. Maybe he's listening in, but even then, I wouldn't bother. If I was going that fast, I would drop it again. In a multilateral meeting, absolutely no way whatsoever that
Okay.
he's going to be listening. Again, they may listen to the English, whatever. I mean, depending, but generally, this is one of those things that you should just drop and just get your breath back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Now, what does he actually say?
Ok, punti cardine principali. Thematic priority setting.
Okay, what did you say for that?
Punti cardine principali.
Okay, that's
points,
nice.
Like, because otherwise, I don't know exactly. Ok, thematic priority settings, it means contesti prioritari tematici.
Yep.
If I want a word-to-word interpretation, but
you could probably drop the setting. I mean, just through its thematic priorities, for example.
Exactly. You can speak just about punti cardine,
Exactly.
our main topics, main thematic priorities. Yeah.
There was now one thing I liked in this sentence, what you said for spearheading. That's a good word. Okay, you need to recognize that. All right, spearheading. Now, Sara said all'avanguardia, right?
All'avanguardia. Yes, exactly.
All'avanguardia. So that's that's really nice. Okay.
Yeah, stanno costituendo l'avanguardia di un recupero globale verde, digitale, eccetera, eccetera. Yes.
Okay, resilient. And the word that you used for resilient, what word did you use?
Resiliente.
Oh, okay, they're always talking about resilience. Okay, at the UN and probably at other international organizations, resilience. It's a big deal. Okay, resilience to climate shocks, resilience to sort of upheavals. So just bear that in mind. Resilience is a sort of buzzword these days.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on.
Digitale equo resiliente. La nostra iniziativa di recupero globale è impegnata al fine di provvedere a sgravi del debito e investimenti sostenibili per gli SDG. Abbiamo attuato programmi che potenzieranno gli investimenti privati per aiutare a coprire il livello finanziario dell'SDG.
Very important expression here to recognize, to have a solution for, is debt relief. Often you'll hear foreign debt relief or external debt relief. Now, what did you say for debt relief?
Ok, for sgravi del debito. Relief, it's a sort of sollievo, but you can't say sollievo in this context. I think you talk about sgravi.
Okay.
Because it refers to money. So yes, sgravi del debito. There's no other solutions. I think to, if you want to render this. So
okay.
Yeah. So sgravi del debito.
Okay, so that's a very important one to as I say, have a solution for. Was there anything else there, Sara, you wanted to talk about?
Let me check here. Okay.
I'd also like, by the way, scaling up private investments. I like what you did here. You said, right. Great minds think alike.
Okay. Per aiutare a coprire il divario finanziario. Financing gap. Okay, it's il divario finanziario.
Okay.
And scale up. Oh, hold on a second.
I heard you say potenziare.
Okay, potenziare, exactly.
Okay, that's nice.
Potenziare gli investimenti, I said.
Okay, and I guess you could say, do you have a word, aumentare?
Potenziare, aumentare, yes.
So again, you want a couple of good synonyms for that, all right?
Aiutare.
You'll hear that scaling up, scaling down. You're going to hear that from English, okay? And you'll also, okay, here he talks about filling the financing gap. Often in English, you'll hear about bridging the gap. Exactly. That's an expression they use all the time, bridging the gap, okay?
Yeah.
So just be on the lookout for that expression. All right. Let's go on.
I nostri sforzi di cooperazione futuri mettono la digitalizzazione al centro del recupero sostenibile. Tutto questo e molto altro coincide strettamente con molte aree di lavoro dell'UNCTAD, menzionate all'inizio del presente intervento, e che sono contestualmente apprezzate dai membri. Crediamo.
Okay, anything there? I liked what you said. I mean, just at the heart of the sustainable recovery, you just said al centro. Okay, so you don't.
Yes.
Again,
because,
you don't need to talk about the heart. You know, the beating
no,
heart. So just
of
al
course.
centro.
Exactly. I said al centro, for example, here,
Mhm.
and then okay. Hold
And
on.
what did you say for consensually praised by the membership?
Exactly, consensually praised by the membership, consensualmente apprezzate.
Okay, so again, we're finding all these synonyms, you see, for congratulare, complementare, elogiare.
Exactly.
What's that last one?
Elogiare,
What's this one you just said now?
apprezzare.
Apprezzare. So you got four of those that you can just keep spinning around, okay?
Yes, exactly. Elogiare. That's
There we go.
as you said.
They all pretty much come down to the same thing. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah. Okay. And the last paragraph, we're almost at the end. Sara's misery is almost at an end. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. Okay.
Here we go.
Speriamo che la conferenza ministeriale in ottobre potrà essere un punto di svolta per l'UNCTAD e fornire una guida per i membri al fine di focalizzare il lavoro dell'UNCTAD sulle aree del suo vantaggio comparato e sul massimo valore aggiunto per i paesi in via di sviluppo. Grazie.
Okay, so I mean, this ministerial conference, this is just a quick thing on my side. We've heard about that. We know there's this conference taking place. Okay, so you can probably drop the ministerial. So you can just say we believe that the conference in October, if you want to make it clearer. But because we've already mentioned it before, again, you could be forgiven. You're perfectly entitled, I think, just to drop the ministerial, for example.
Okay.
And you said for a turning point.
Ok, chiave di svolta, punto di svolta.
Okay.
Yeah, or yes, punto di svolta.
And one other word I was interested to hear. You said provide memberships guidance, and the word you used was
Allora, fornire una guida per I membri.
okay. Now, does a guida, does that mean just
Guide.
like a book, like a physical guide, or general?
It can be both. I can
Okay.
buy a guide, for example, a guide to Sicily, for example, but also I can buy, I can say, for example, fornire una guida in as abstract. I mean.
Okay, you can say abstract.
Yes.
The reason I ask, is that in like French and Spanish, they often talk about something in French, les orientations. Okay.
Yep.
And I was wondering, do you have something similar in Italian to that? Orientazioni. Or...
we can say orientare, dare un orientamento.
Okay, so maybe it gives you so you can use the guido or the
orientare I membri verso. Yeah, you can use this term orientare.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much it. By the way, just give me just one last word that I want you to give a few synonyms for on the areas of its comparative advantage. So this is, again, just give me a few synonyms for areas. What did you say here?
Okay.
Ambiti or something?
No, I said aree.
Okay.
Aree del suo vantaggio comparato, però I could also say settori, probably.
Uh-huh.
I can say campi, settori.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's good. That's a word. Good a word. That's a very simple word, but one that you want to have a few synonyms for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, Sara, for my part, so when you listen through it, it's a very accurate job. It's very meticulously done. You get a lot of the detail. My criticism, hang on, we'll open up the big screen at this point. Hang on, let me share the. So as I say, so Sara she's very meticulous. I think you can tell that with translators. You see, sometimes translators have difficulty becoming interpreters. Too much detail, too much. They want to get everything. They want to get every word in. And it's like how I would compare it to if you always drive, you've got a car and you're driving to work, and you always wait in the queue and then you leave and things. And then one day you buy a scooter or a motorbike. Now with the motorbike, you've suddenly got all this more freedom. You can sort of take shortcuts. You don't have to sit in the same queue as the cars. You can sort of nip in, you can sort of overtake them and wait at the front of the traffic lights and then get fined like I do. But, but it gives you a bit more freedom for maneuver. I have the opposite problem, for example. I'm used to doing that. And even with drive, because I usually go take the scooter, and then when I have to drive, I forget that I'm not allowed to take the same shortcuts as when I'm on the scooter. And I have to think, must think I've got to just get in and wait and be a good boy. So that's the thing. I know with you guys who are more translators and who want to get into interpreting, you have to sort of move out of the translating mindset and think to yourself.
I have, and also another mistake I'm used to do. I perfectly know it. I tend to begin right at the immediate start when they speak, and that's a big mistake. Sometimes I have to relax, take a breath, and then because I know
give them a little bit of room. You need just to
I need to be a little bit distant. Otherwise, I know it would be difficult. That sentence.
Again, it's very forgivable under these circumstances when the sound quality is bad and he's going quickly. Though I do the same. You're under stress and you're desperate to hang on to the guy.
If I'm at home, but I felt under stress, so that's why also because of the fear of losing words.
Of losing him,
but
one exercise that I find is very useful that when I started doing really helped me. It's when you're interpreting a text, seeing what is the absolute bare minimum, that you can do a text in without losing, while keeping most of the meaning. And it means like if if there are two adjectives, like drop one, or if there's seeing what can I get rid of, what's the very least I can say. And that I find is because it gives you like an absolute minimum starting point. And anything and if you've got a little bit of more energy left, then you can throw in additional stuff. But I always find that a very good exercise to just test yourself to see how little information can you give, how few words can you give, while more or less keeping the meaning.
Next time I try to cut and pick up the most important concepts and see what happens. And see what happens.
And drop all the excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Because remember, I should just add, because so you can interpret like the giving the detail that Sara did, but remember at work you've got to keep that up for 30 minutes. You've got to keep that intensity level for 30 minutes. You are going to be a broken man or a woman at the end of those 30 minutes. In a test, for a UN test, you usually have to do. It's usually about 6 statements of about 5 to 7 minutes. So it's like it's like a shift. Like we split it up into half hours. You could get away with it maybe for like a test going at that intensity, but
no way.
You really have to pace yourself. You have to think about pacing yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, because 4 minutes, no, 4 minutes, even less.
That's it. It was about 4 minutes, wasn't it? Right.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Multiply that by 7.
Could be okay, but multiplied by 7, it's impossible. No,
Yeah.
no way. Okay.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you've learned a few new things from Sara and myself. If you have enjoyed the episode, please do press the like button. Also, please do subscribe if you're finding this the product, the consensual endorsed interpretation station product. If you're finding it very commendable, please do subscribe. Also, before I close the show, I must tell you, I will be making an appearance. You'll see, I may have seen it on the LinkedIn group. I've been invited to give a association of translators and interpreters. I was invited by Mr. Robert Gebhardt. Robert, I appeared actually on his show. He's got a YouTube channel called Freelance Translator Tips. Funnily enough, he does Italian. He's an American guy. It's like he's an American Italian. He does really good shows, particularly aimed at translators. So I would go to. I just want to give him a shout out and advise you to go and subscribe to his page, Freelance Translator Tips. So it's basically him. He got me the invite to speak to the Carolina interpreters. So that's on September the 4th, Saturday, September the 4th. You'll find the details on the Interpretation Station LinkedIn page if you want to come and see me in action. Sara, any last words from you?
Just enjoy your holiday.
The end of my holiday.
Yeah. No, it's a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Well, Sara's now going off to Sicily. Lucky her, as I say, for her holiday.
Yeah, I'll be back in 2 weeks approximately.
Well, when we'll do more shows. But for now, well, I'm going to say to Sara, buon viaggi, right?
Buon viaggio, yes.
Buon viaggio, buon viaggio. And that leaves... Say again?
Buon rientro.
Buon rientro.
Buon rientro.
Oh, that's for coming back, is it?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
My Italian's coming on, isn't it? We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, all that leaves me to say then is until next time that episode 84 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.